Welcome to The Anxious Voyage. If you think that title sounds bleak or foreboding, one of two things must be true. You're very lucky, or you need to get out more. On this program, we share stories of life and living. We compare notes. We discover commonalities. We accept that life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, and we embrace and celebrate all of it. Take the ride with us. We're glad you're here. Now, here's your host, Mark O'Brien.
Hello and welcome to the program. We are coming to you again and as always from World Headquarters in Middletown, Connecticut, home of Chef Albert Murph-Whiffle, winner of the Alfred E. Newman Cooking Award for his signature dish, eggs Florentine without the spinach. I'm especially happy to have my guest Sarah Kalmeta with me today because most times I know more about my guests than I know about Sarah. So we're all going to learn today. Sarah, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
So what I do know about you is that you somehow made your way from being an aspiring Olympic figure skater to being, as I understand it, a prominent figure in the business aviation industry. So I would like to know a little bit more about your young life,
Sure.
and I would absolutely love to know how people go from skates to the air.
Yes. Yeah, I skated from the age of 3. I actually played hockey for a year first. Imagine like a 3-year-old Sarah with really long curly hair and like kitted out in this hockey uniform. I could barely, move because I had some padding on. And started figure skating, and then did that until, for 11, 12 years. I was at the ice rink before school, after school. My summers were from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. with on-ice training, off-ice training, everything with that goal of the ice show, getting better, going to competitions and, advancing. And I still remember when Tara Lipinski went to the Olympics because there was a, question of the age from when she qualified to when she'd be competing, because there's, the age requirement. And that was like someone that I was following and, inspired by.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I sustained quite heavy knee injuries to the point where one morning I just couldn't walk without severe pain. And, went to the doctor, we got MRIs and did all sorts of tests and everything. And I had just years and years of falling on the ice. And then as you start to increase in your skill level, of course, you're going for those double jumps and more likely to fall in the beginning, right? New skills require new movement patterns and muscle memory. And I just had done a lot of sustained damage that required me to have a very adult conversation at a young age of, do I want to continue doing this and, have the repercussions of maybe double knee replacement surgery, which is what the doctor said I would likely need if I had another fall. And, I was 14 when he told me that.
Well,
or do I pivot and, channel that energy and drive and discipline into something else? And so we as a family were also moving from Chicago to Sedona, Arizona. And there's no competitive ice rink in Sedona. There's no ice rink at all. And the nearest rink was 45 minutes away. But if I really wanted to compete at that level, I would have had to go to Scottsdale or Phoenix, which was, 2 hours away. And so decided to hang up the skates and, focus elsewhere. And so when I was in high school, I did a program called Civil Air Patrol, which is Auxiliary Air Force. And they do search and rescue, civilian search and rescue. You learn to fly airplanes. You follow the same ranking structure as the United States Air Force. And so we had uniforms and we had to do, testing and pass, for the promotion and hit certain requirements. And through that, my love for aviation was reactivated. I'd always loved it as a child. My first 2 words were for star and airplane, but everything went into skating. So now that I had this extra space and more time and attention, that all got channeled into aviation. And I fell into the business aviation world completely by chance after I graduated from university, and then didn't look back. Now I'm doing more in the aerospace industry now that I'm back in the US, which has been a lot of fun. So, my joke is that I played with the airplanes. Now it's time to play with stars.
Before we go into more of the aviation thing, I want to ask you a couple of questions
Sure.
about your young life. First, do you have siblings? And if so, where are you in that order?
I'm the eldest. And, my mother remarried. And so when I was 10 or 11, I had a baby brother and then a baby sister shortly thereafter.
Okay, so it wasn't like sibling rivalries or something.
No, I was essentially an only child until 10
Okay.
or 11 and then got siblings, which apparently is apparent in my personality as well. And then for my father's remarriage, I have three half sisters on that side also. And they're also younger.
And the other question I want to ask you, believe this or not, is about loss. And
Hmm.
and I'll tell you why. Um, you can probably guess that music played a pretty significant part of my life.
Yeah.
Um, it took me 10 years to get to college because that's what I was doing. And I've managed, I haven't played in quite a while, but I've managed to sort of fill that with
Hmm.
other interests. The older of my two sons is a passionate basketball coach. And he recently gave that up because he came to the realization that he cared more about it than his players, their parents, and the administration. Was knowingly giving up skating that kind of loss for you? Did it create what felt like a hole?
Yes.
And do you think that was I'm trying to find the causal relationship here. Do you think that was mitigated by the interest that you discovered in Civil Air Patrol? Or do you think the interest in Civil Air Patrol was driven by your wanting to fill that hole, or maybe both?
I would say both. The hole was also not completely filled because once you're an athlete, especially a competitive athlete, that's just a big part of you. And it wasn't until my 20s when I started competing in competitive CrossFit that I found like that full replacement for what skating gave to me. But in terms of being able to channel my attention and my focus and my drive, certainly.
So now I have to ask you, and of course I have a reason for this too. Um, were you concerned when you got into CrossFit? Were you concerned about your knees?
At that point, no, because I had done a lot of rehab over the years. So let's see, I stopped skating at 14. I probably started CrossFitting at 24, so 10 years later. And I had really done a lot of different protocols to rebuild the cartilage, rebuild strength, really focus on proper alignment, and just make sure that my body was moving smoothly. And I did it slowly. I know that CrossFit can have a bad rap for people getting hurt, but I was at a great gym and had really great instruction. And because of my athletic background, it wasn't like I'd never exercised or trained or been in a weight room before, and I was now starting. So I had a really strong foundation. And what I had noticed is that the movements that did not require quick lateral shifting, such as soccer or flag football or just whatever you might play where you're very dynamic and you're going in multiple directions. CrossFit was, vertical and horizontal movement patterns, basically. So I was able to have structure where I wasn't going to be damaging my knees. And I actually found that they got stronger after that.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
are you still, whether competitive or not, doesn't matter. Are you still engaged in CrossFit?
Yes and no. I wouldn't, I don't necessarily have the identity of a CrossFitter anymore, but my identity is I'm an athlete. And so I go to the gym, I use weights, I run, I play multiple sports. I've just decided I'm going to enter into either the Tough Mudder or the Spartan race next year. I need something to train towards. And that's a realization that I've just had in about the last week, that without that, training is great. I love to move my body, and fitness and health is important to me, but having a goal to work towards really helps me with that discipline of the mind and, channeling, like, where am I going with this?
And the reason I asked the question is, on a personal note, I was a pretty hardcore gym rat for about, I don't know, 30 years or so, 35.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then for whatever circumstances or other, I just kind of got away from it for a while. Today was the first day of my 5th week back at the gym with a trainer. And I think, yeah, my eyelids don't hurt, but that's pretty much the only thing that doesn't hurt. But
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Just because that soreness tells me that I'm working things that needed to be worked.
Yeah.
There's just something, I don't know what it is, reassuring, comforting, something
Yeah.
about that.
It's that testing of, knowing what you're capable of. And, I'm a big Stoic philosopher, and I was just reading this morning, one of the Seneca was quoted as saying, "I pity the man who has not entered the arena, for they don't know what they're capable of."
Interesting.
And, so by pushing your body in those physical ways, no matter whether it's at the gym or on a hike or, snowboarding, something that you're active, we get the physical tactile cues of, hey, it's working. Hey, there's improvement, right? And a lot of times in our intellectual pursuits, we don't necessarily get that same feeling or reflection without really being intentional about it. And so it's something about physically testing yourself, doing those hard things in the gym or outside, going backpacking and carrying a heavy rucksack. You've already achieved something difficult for the day. You're capable of taking care of yourself. And so when the noise of our days come in, it's not as likely to derail you. That's what I found in my experience.
That's interesting. I don't think I would have connected those dots, but you're right. And being away from the gym for that extended period sort of made me aware of my own aging in
Hmm.
ways that I might not otherwise have been aware. So it's
Right.
also very reassuring to be back in the gym and to understand what although obviously I have a ways to go, but like you, I need something to be working toward.
Yeah.
But it's refreshing to recognize the things that I'm still capable of.
Yes, absolutely.
I once said one of the keys to aging is recognizing that you actually can do a lot of the stuff that you could do when you're younger, but maybe you shouldn't. So there's a
Yes, I
little of
think
that in
one
there.
of one of my biggest things, being a competitive athlete too, why I had to stay away from CrossFit, if you will, for a long time, and stay away from skating for a while, a few years after I stopped, was because my brain and my muscle memory remembers what I used to do.
Yeah.
And so I just go straight into that. And it's like, well, I didn't have a proper warm up. Should I really be trying to do that jump on the ice right now? Or, I haven't done a spin in 5 years. Should I really be going at it at this speed? Or, like, okay, last time I lifted that weight and I'm strong enough to do it, but should I? Probably not. I need to warm up slowly and make sure that I'm not going to injure myself. And so it took me a little while to calibrate and, find that spot where I wasn't going to try to go into competitive mode right away. But yes, I guess that's wisdom, right? Knowing that you
Yeah. Well,
can, but choosing not to.
I haven't yet. I haven't yet reached the point in my life at which I've been accused of wisdom, but
Oh yeah,
I suppose that comes. And you may or may not have
moments,
gotten there, but
moments of wisdom. It
yeah,
doesn't mean
okay.
we're wise all the time.
Well, isn't that like even the broken clock is right twice a day?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
um, I've also come to respect rest more than I
Oh,
did
100%.
when I was younger.
Absolutely. That was something I did not respect very much. It was always just, how do I get there faster? How do I do more? Like I want to get there already, the get there-itis. And
Mm.
now, I mean, I got it framed as a poster that says, slow down, relax from within, focus with intensity, be present right here, right now, and then think is in big letters. and reference the world around you. Answers are everywhere. Commit, then do it. Be positive even when things look bleak. Work with intention. Play like a child. Savor process. The end will come when it's ready. Zoom out and see the big picture. Finish what you start and reflect on your experiences. You are your greatest teacher. And I have that there to remind me because I move faster than most, but I also need to slow down and savor the experience, even when it hurts in the gym, right? And you embrace the suck. You know that this is getting you somewhere else and not trying to just rush the process. I mean, in the gym, that's how we get hurt, right? We try to rush the movement because it's heavier. And we think, well, if I move faster, it's over more quickly, when actually that's not going to be the best course of action. And the same thing in all of our pursuits in life.
I love the idea that the end will come when it's ready.
Yes.
I think when I was younger, I was probably more lost or directionless than impatient. But what I recognize now is that I can't think of anything that I wanted or would have wished for that I haven't gotten.
Mm.
And so that's taught me to be more patient. I mean, timing is absolutely everything.
Oh, absolutely. And being open, right? If you're rushing because you're target locked on something and you're not resting, you're not taking those moments to look up and look around, you could miss some really incredible opportunities. You know, the thing that maybe you even want, but it just looks slightly different than what you imagined it. So you pass it by. And that's what slowing down gives us. You know, I like to use the analogy of driving, and most people drive a car or have at least been on a bicycle. You know, the faster you're going, the less response time you have to read the sign or to notice that something is taking place. And so you have to be really dialed in order to react quick enough to not, cause damage or, swerve across 5 lanes to get to the exit because you weren't paying attention. Whereas when you're slow and you're intentional and you're paying attention to all those cues and markers, right, you can then be intentional about how you get there rather than the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, interesting. It's also interesting to me that you mentioned bicycling because for a while I was a very, very avid cyclist, like,
Oh, yeah?
3,500 miles in a season or something. But
Wow.
what I recognized was exactly what you just said. When I started riding my bike seriously in places that I'd been a million times before, I remember thinking, I never saw that. I never noticed that. And the change in perspective was amazing. And I also want to share one other thing. Why not? 25 or so years ago, I suffered this from a very terrible depression.
Mm.
And one of the things that cycling taught me, because at times, especially if you're as big as I am and you're climbing, that's painful as hell.
Yeah.
But what I realized was, and Marcel Proust said, we are healed of a suffering only by experiencing it to the full. And what
Yes.
I realized on the bike was, if I didn't quit, that pain was necessarily going to be over. And I connected that to depression, which is just another kind of pain.
Mm.
And I thought, oh yeah, I mean, maybe that's it. You just have to be with it and accept it. And if you're willing to do that, it's almost as if you're showing it. No, 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 no. You can't get me. You're not going to get me
Yeah.
because it
Well,
will
it's
be.
also saying it's okay to be here. It's okay to have this experience.
Yeah,
And, nothing lasts forever.
yeah. And I also thought of that when you were talking about being in the gym, and I think that the verb you used was embracing
Yeah.
the suck.
Yes.
Um, I mean, maybe I need to get over this, but when I'm in the gym, I always think if what I'm doing isn't making me uncomfortable, I'm either not doing it right or I'm not working hard enough. One of the two. And
Yeah.
obviously, I recognize the danger of overdoing, but that's interesting. And I also wanted to ask you, and I'm maybe half facetious, but no more than that. Um, I've actually studied my share of philosophy, but when you mentioned the Stoics, My grandma O'Brien used to say, there's no sense being Irish if you can't be thick. Is there a difference between stoicism and stubbornness?
Um, I would say yes. I think the stoicism is a lot misunderstood a lot, right? And we have to remember that what we're reading about, what we're getting from these journals of people from the past is, the different languaging, different things, but ultimately it's about, what principles are you holding true to? And can you, it's a way of outlook on life. And it's not like clinging to this at the expense of all else and being detrimental, but it's about really assessing and analyzing. And so stoicism is many things, but I wouldn't equate it to being stubborn.
No, and that's why I was talking about being facetious. I thought you might say that, and you did actually, in a sense, say that there's a lot more thoughtfulness and intentionality, and recognition and awareness in stoicism.
Yeah.
Stubbornness is just like
stubbornness is just me because I'm stubborn for sure. But that has nothing to do with stoicism. That's just a Sarah-ism.
Okay, I like that distinction a lot. I think this is actually a terrific place to take our first commercial break, because there are some other things I would like to talk about in the next segment. So let's do that. We'll see everybody in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life, from any circumstances, a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brand's distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back, everyone. We're glad you're still here with us. Sarah, welcome back to you too.
Thank you.
Am I correct in thinking that you are a licensed pilot?
No, actually, that would be incorrect. I have flown airplanes, but I do not have a license.
Okay. Have you ever been caught for flying a plane without a license?
No, because I've not gone by myself. I've been with other.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Critical
So,
distinction there.
living in Hong Kong for a long time, the airport there is not suitable for little aircraft. And so I would have had to maintain my currency. You have to have takeoffs and landings every 90 days through takeoffs and landings. And so I would have had to go to the Philippines or go somewhere else in order to be able to do that. And I was so busy with my role and traveling a lot that it wasn't a priority for me. However, my younger sister is now a certified flight instructor, and so I might be cashing in some time with her when we get a chance.
Nice. This is not where I intended to head in this segment. We'll get there in a minute. But so the idea, at least to me, that you were in Hong Kong for whatever time you were is fascinating. Were you employed by a company there? What was your work there?
Yeah, so I was first sent out to Asia by a US-based operator out of Van Nuys, California, who operated business jet aircraft, and they had some based in Singapore and Hong Kong. So I was actually sent to Singapore first through them to help train the staff that we hired as we were expanding, right? And I was training them in the dispatch and operations of the airplane, the company policies and procedure. And I had studied Mandarin as a minor in my university degree. And so I spoke the language. And so that was actually why they hired me, a big part of why they hired me, because they knew they had aircraft in that part of the world. They were expanding. And when I got there, it was great. I loved it. It was a new perspective I'm a first generation American. And so I grew up with multicultural background and interest and viewpoints, but being able to get this new perspective of the US and just the world was fascinating to me. And so I decided I wanted to stay. And so I was in Asia from 2010 till end of 2021.
Wow.
I then got stuck in the US during COVID and couldn't go back home. So we can get to that a little bit later. But I then transferred to a company that was a Dubai-based business based in Beijing. And then I worked for a Hong Kong operator. And then my final corporate job before starting my own business was with a US-based company that provided services to private jets.
Okay. Now I'm having option anxiety because I have so many questions. But I'll get over myself. I do want to hear about that when you said because of COVID you couldn't get back home. How I want to understand exactly what you mean by that, and how did you manage that?
Sure. Well, there was anxiety for sure, talking about an anxious voyage. I was in Hong Kong when COVID broke, so we actually experienced it before the US, right? We were there at the epicenter. So in January of 2020 already, we were experiencing lockdown and masks and everything, but Hong Kong was very quick to respond because they had experience with SARS.
Yep.
So they also shut the border. So we could not get into Hong Kong if you were not a resident, and you needed a 3-week hotel quarantine and then test negative before you could go home. So we didn't really have breakouts. When we would have clusters, I'm using air quotes because our cluster, the news would be like, oh my God, breaking news, there's a cluster of 12 people with COVID.
Wow.
That's very minor in comparison to what many other places experienced. And so I feel quite lucky in that regard. We definitely, went from this hustling, bustling city, which is, Hong Kong's like New York on steroids, to, we're spending time at home, we're going out in nature, and you don't see many people. And so it's very different. But because of this requirement, most people were not leaving unless they were going for significant lengths of time. And we didn't have, too much to worry about. And so it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, I guess. You adapt to your new circumstances and you find ways to cope and survive. And, we were able to still go out to eat a little bit here and there. And we had like waves of different various types of closures and things like that. So I had in, summer of 21, it'd been about a year and a half of this, and I was missing my family and hadn't seen them for 2 years at that point. So I thought, okay, I'll make a trip just after Thanksgiving. I'm going to go for 2 months to the US, spend the holidays there, and I'll see everybody, right? My best friends, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my brother and sister, and just make the rounds, have quality time, not just this like typical in and out that I used to do, and then go back home because I wanted to also make that 3-week hotel quarantine worth it. And then Omicron, if you remember that, was a variant in January of 2022. And I remember a few of my clients at the time, they're still based in Hong Kong, and one of them flew for Cathay, and he was kind of giving me some information that wasn't necessarily public news. He's like, Sarah, I don't think you're coming home anytime soon, just from what he was seeing with the closures and the restrictions on the flying side. And so sure enough, I was in Austin, funnily enough, and I had the thought, hey, I kind of like it here. Maybe I don't need to rush back to Hong Kong. And woke up the next morning, my flight had been canceled, no return date. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Maybe you need to be careful what you wish for because you might get it. And this was January 26th. I was supposed to fly back on February 2nd, 2022. So I looked into it, and I could have gone home, but I would have had to go to another country because the border was blocked from the US. Omicron meant that Hong Kong shut the border completely from 8 countries, direct flights. So I would have had to go to a country on the approved list, spend 3 weeks, test negative, then go to Hong Kong and still spend 3 weeks in a hotel at my own expense, test negative, and then I could go home. So by the time all of that was said and done, I would have spent $10,000. I would have been 6 weeks in solitary confinement, essentially, to arrive to a city that was not moving, business was slow, and my lease was going to be up. And the thought of signing another 2-year lease in those conditions and spending that much money to just be by myself, I thought, you know what, I can think of a few other ways to spend $10,000 and actually enjoy my life, right?
What a concept.
So I, talked to my partner. He put our stuff in storage. He's Australian, so he'd never been to the US before. I met him in Australia when they opened their borders in April. And then he came over here, and we, did the camper van up the coast of California and did the national parks and just, did the rounds again to all the friends and family. And through that traveling, really fell in love with Austin. He got a job offer with a US visa. And the dominoes just fell in such a way that we thought, okay, it's so easy. Why not? Let's see what this does and where this takes us. And that's kind of how my Asia adventure started too. I said yes to an opportunity and was open to seeing where it took me. So now, fast forward 2 years, 2.5 years, and I'm still here in the US. Now we have our place in Austin. We have a dog. So, people are like, oh, so is this it then? And I'm like, well, it's where I live now. But I don't ever think anything is it, right?
Yeah. Because you are, after all, the letting go girl.
Yes.
So I want to ask you this, and I'm asking in part because I remember absolutely clearly when the first time I recognized this. I don't want to say the first time it happened to me, but when I knew it. When you recognized the difficulty that you would have getting back to Hong Kong, did that feel like a sign to you?
Yeah. A lot of times when there's just so much resistance and so many things like not working, I usually take that as a sign of, or as my mom would like to say, I'm trying to row my boat upstream, and so where's the current actually taking me? Can I let go a little bit and just point in a new direction and see what happens, right? For me, everything is a science experiment in life. And Mark Manson's email this morning is talking about, trying on clothes. If you try the clothes on and they don't fit, you get rid of them. You get new clothes, or you don't buy them, right? And there's so many analogies we can have for that. So I definitely it was curious to me that I was kind of in this mindset of feeling the winds of change, and then that happened, and it was kind of a very easy, well, let's not go back there right now. and let's see what else happens.
Okay. So on that note, let's take our second commercial break. And while we're in break, I'm going to start preparing my compactor because there's so much stuff that I want to try to get to
Sounds good.
before we have to be done. So let's do it. We'll take another commercial break and be right back.
Are you ready for the quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality,
Where potentiality meets reality.
where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on DreamVision7Radio.com.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life from any circumstances a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back once again. Thank you everyone for staying with us. I'm gonna try to divide this segment. I was tempted to say intelligently. I don't know if I want to go that far. So the first thing is a little bit about philosophy. And I happened to be thinking about this one day last week when I knew this show was coming and I was supposed to be working, but I was thinking about this. So people say attitude is everything.
Mm-hmm.
But what occurred to me to ask you is, given what you do and the amount of time that you've spent in the air, do you think altitude has anything to do with that? And to help you understand what I mean, whether that matters or not, is being in a plane helps me become significantly more comfortable with my own insignificance. I mean, I'm up there, I'm looking at everything which is quite different, and I recognize I'm this teeny little thing in the universe, whatever that is, and I feel better. Do you think that has anything to do? Oh, and I should also add, I wanted to ask you that question because in watching you on especially Jonas and Goldson's podcast, Grappling with the Gray, you just strike me as so level-headed and balanced. And I wondered if altitude had anything to do with that.
That's a really great question, and I'd like to answer it in two ways.
Okay.
So the first thing is one of my favorite quotes is by Zig Ziglar, and it's your attitude, not your aptitude, determines your altitude. So attitude absolutely will determine how you experience the world. You know, it's when you stop trying to make the world conform to what you want it to be and you allow it to be what it is, and you have a new perspective on it that you can experience. That's why two people going through the same exact thing can have wildly different experiences. Now, the altitude question is interesting. I never really maybe thought of it in that sense, but you don't need altitude in order to experience that awe of you're a tiny speck in the universe and there's things greater than you. You can experience that on hikes. You can experience that in watching a butterfly, right? Or a child playing and laughing. So there's new experiences and awe-inducing experiences, which can be micro as well as macro, are really, really important for those perspective shifts and the open attitude to those things instead of trying to always name it or label it or make it fit in a box that you're used to. That's what allows you to have those things. You know, to be honest, now you go up in an airplane, nobody opens the windows. Everybody's got the shades down. And I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we not looking out the window? Like, I want to look out the window when I'm on an airplane. I mean, granted, I usually have an aisle seat, but still, I want to be able to see out the window. And so people aren't even getting that now if they are flying in an airplane. But it's the, like look up from your device, look out the window, experience what you're in right now, get off the devices. I mean, yes, we're doing this on Zoom, but I see so many people going for a walk and they're on their phone. Like, leave that at home. When I go for a run, I don't have earplugs or earphones anymore because I'm doing, dopamine cycling, making sure I'm not making the conditions so high that if I don't have my headphones, I won't go for a run. But also you notice so much more. I've been around this trail so many times, to your point about the cycling, you've been there for hundreds of times and yet you can still find new things. So, new experiences and new perspectives, no matter what the height is going to give you that. But obviously when you climb the mountain and you look down, or when you're in an airplane and you look down, that does give you a new perspective because you realize just how small you are. And so it's seeking those opportunities out because they won't just come to you, unless you live in like Switzerland and that's in your backyard, right?
Yeah.
Or in, the Grand Canyon and beautiful places like that. But seeking those experiences out, seeking new things is really what's going to help you. And that requires the right attitude, right? We can't go somewhere else and be like, well, why isn't it the way that I want it to be? Or why isn't it the way that I'm used to? That's the wrong attitude. And that will not allow you to have that perspective shift.
I've shared this before, but I'll just tell you briefly. Someday, I've actually sort of started on it, but I need to write a book called I Thought Bananas Were Purple. And I need to do that because I had a conversation with a woman that I worked for almost 30 years ago. We were having lunch one day and she said, we're all victims of our own values. And I said, no, we're not. We're all victims of our own expectations.
Yes.
Because every time we encounter a circumstance that doesn't conform to our expectations, everybody says exactly the same thing. Yeah, but I thought, well, hold on. It doesn't matter what you thought. That's
right.
not, now that you know bananas aren't purple, so now what are you going to do? Okay. So the other topic I wanted to cover here was choices. And particularly when you were, I don't know how to phrase this, it could have gone one of two ways. When you were either making the choice to start your own business, or when you felt driven to start your own business. What did that feel like for you?
Oh, interesting. At the time of it happening, I was still exploring the word feelings because I had been a
Mhm.
walking, talking head for so many years that there was a lot of new sensation happening. I had a lot of change in a relatively short period of time. I got married in 2018, separated in 2019, processing the divorce, then COVID happened, and starting my business. So a lot of transformation and new things happening at the same time. I would say that the drive to start it was to have more freedom in my schedule and to do something that I felt was meaningful. I started to get a little bit jaded in my last corporate role. And, had been thinking for quite some time about, well, what do I actually want to do? And how can I add value and be of service and have fun and, make money and leverage my skill set, all those things. And had been noodling around with that for about 9 months, but was a typical golden handcuff situation of, well, I need to make this much because look at what I'm spending. But I was
Yeah.
spending that out of unhappiness. Um, and so part of it was necessity. I also, lost my job during COVID. I was made redundant. And it came at a time of about 9 or 10 months of assessing and analyzing, like, if I quit today, what's my runway look like? And what would I do? So it was already starting to happen. And that was kind of the push out of the baby bird's nest that I think I needed.
Hmm.
I my mom was an entrepreneur and I grew up with that. And so it was always attractive to me, but I also saw what happened on the back end. And I didn't know if I wanted to put up with that. And I'm still very much a planner at heart, but I'm a lot more relaxed than I used to be. But, I like things to be a certain way. And I like to I like to know and I like to feel secure in that. And being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of unknowing. There's a lot of you know, I'm going to try this system and see if it works. Or maybe, I'm going to pivot and try something new because this is not what I thought it was going to be. And that's the same thing with anything, whether it's your business or not. But the feelings were uncertainty, excitement, um, enthusiastic. Definitely the early days, I was probably like, a Labrador puppy jumping around, really excited about it. I've learned how to temper that. Meditation is my best friend for anxiety, for anger, frustration, procrastination, imposter syndrome, all those things.
Hmm.
And I've learned how to ride the waves with a little bit more ease. I feel like I have a little more skill set. I'm watching the waves come and able to time them a little bit better and have learned how to breathe when I'm tumbling through the waves and all those kind of metaphors that you can use. And that's, been the journey. But definitely in the beginning, it was a lot of things all at once.
The one thing I didn't hear you say is fear.
Oh, I was definitely scared. I'm still scared today. Like you go through periods, but I didn't let that stop me. It was present, but it didn't prevent me from doing it. I also am you throw me in the deep end and I will learn to swim type of person, which is how I survived business aviation dispatch. Anyone who's in that industry and that hears that will know exactly what I'm talking about. It really is, you figure it out or you don't. And if you figure it out, you stay there. And if you don't, then you go somewhere else. So that's a big part of my personality, the persistence, the tenacity that I definitely have. Um, but owning your own business is scary. Yeah,
I,
it's
I
very
want to
scary.
share this with you because my business is now a shade over 20 years old. Um,
Congratulations.
and when I started it, I was terrified, and I mean terrified. And there was a guy who was with me at the time, and he said to me two things that I will never forget. Maybe they'll help you. Um, the first time he said to me, he always called me Chief. I don't know why. Chief, do you remember being born? I said, no, 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 I don't. And he said, do you know why? And I said, no, no, I don't. And he said, because it hurts so damn much. He said, you're in a process of rebirth now. Did you really think it wouldn't hurt?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's just brilliant. And the other time he said to me, Chief, you just jumped out of an airplane. even if your chute opens, don't you think it's going to hurt when you hit the ground? And I thought, oh, that's probably right too.
Yes.
So, and I also want to agree with you that I find it healthy, but I'm still scared too. And I wouldn't want to be without that edge. I guess that's the best way for me to put that.
I had a coach that once said, owning your own business is the fast track to dealing with your own shit. And it's
Ooh,
very true
yeah.
because you have to face your stories about money, about process, about expectation, about what you're capable of. And you have to do those things, or else your business will not grow, or you'll procrastinate, you'll self-sabotage, all those things. And I agree with you. And as you were talking about the being born bit, right? It's so terrifying being born. I mean, we're in this like happy place where everything's provided for us and it's safe and it's, warm and whatever else the baby's experiencing. And then all of a sudden it's cold, it's loud, it's bright, and there's, all these new things happening. Um, and I remember this analogy, this short story of, twins in the womb having this, conversation is like a consciousness conversation of what's coming
Mm.
next.
Oh, I
And
love
one of
that.
them was like terrified of what happens when this is over, when this experience is over. And the other one was, well, what if it's better than this? Right. And obviously, as a human, we know once you're born, we know what we're experiencing now because we're adults and we've experienced it. But as that infant in the womb, you have no idea. And so that's something I have to continually remind myself of. And that's not to say that I don't have my low moments or the dips into anxiety where I feel a bit frozen. I know how to pull myself out a little bit better. I ask for help and I actually let people help me now. Whereas in the past, it was a little bit like, I need help. And they'd come and be like, no, 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 I've got it. I'm fine.
Sarah, did
So,
did you just admit to being human?
yes.
I
Yeah.
think you did.
I'll also admit to being wrong sometimes. That might make my partner like fall over. But
That happened to me
or
once.
my mom, she'll probably has straw on the ground right now if she's watching this live.
I want to share one thing more with you, and then I want you to be able to tell people what you do and how to find you.
Sure.
I'm sure everybody who has children will tell you the same thing. You can learn the most amazing things from your kids.
Mm.
So this one is also about my number one, Sean, who was the basketball coach. And it's a longer story about planning for a game. But I said to him once, "Do you have a game plan for every?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have a plan for every game, and I scout every team we're going to play, but I have no idea what's going to happen until the ball goes up." And
Mm.
that hit me like a ton of bricks. And that's how I live. I
Yeah.
plan to some extent, but I also recognize I don't have any idea what's going to happen until the ball goes
Right.
up. And you got to
Exactly.
be prepared.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that you do have your own business, please tell us what you do, and then I will ask you again how can people get in touch with you so they can take advantage of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my business is called Pivot Point International, based here in Austin. I am a professional speaker. So I do keynotes. I also MC events. I love to host events. It's one of my favorite things. I also am part of the Sempre events team. And so we put on life and experiential events, things that money cannot buy. And when I'm there, I'm managing the speakers and helping to produce the event. So I get a lot of fun in that production and the experience. You'll notice from this talk that I'm very experiential. So if you're looking for a speaker, an MC, or someone to help produce your event, you can give me a call. And you can find me on all my social channels at Sarah the Pivoter. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. I have an X account, but I don't really use it. Same with Facebook. So LinkedIn or going to sarahkalmeta.com is going to be your best bet to find me and book a time to have a conversation.
And does Pivot Point International have a website?
Yep, sarahkalmeta.com. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the same thing. All right.
I decided to keep it my name so that in case I ever pivot the brand, I don't have to change it.
No,
There's layers. There's so many layers.
no. I want to ask you, where were you 20 years ago? And I'm asking you that because if I had known then what I know now, I never, ever would have put my name on the door. Never. Oh, live and learn.
Yeah.
I also want to share one more thing with you, and that is, I think from the little time I've spent with you. That I think one of the reasons that you are and will continue to be successful is that you are so genuine. And I mean, you can't put a price on that. And unless you're even more cynical than I am, you can't fake that. So best of luck to you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Okay, hope to do it again. And to everybody else who joined us today, thank you very much. I will not be back on the first Monday of September, because if you're in the United States, that's Labor Day. And so it'll probably be the Monday after that, but we'll see you then. And thank you all for joining us. Sarah, thank you again.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into The Anxious Voyage, the program dedicated to sharing stories, helping people, and celebrating life. You can see and listen to The Anxious Voyage on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you have a story to tell, or if you know someone who does, please email the host, Mark O'Brien, at mark@o'briencg.com. In the meantime, please remember, the only bad stories are the ones we don't share.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.